They started looking around the car for an ejected body because they didn't see anybody in the car. And one of the highway patrolmen opened the door to see, like, can we find a phone? Is there a wallet in here to identify whose car this is? And they found me crunched upon myself underneath the steering wheel where the pedals were. And I wasn't breathing. Hi, my name is Ariana. I was born in 1993 in Tucson, Arizona, and I was born into a pretty broken family. My parents were never married, and they loved each other very much, but definitely did not plan to have me. My mom had had 2 children prior to me, so I have 2 older brothers. They're 12 and 18 years older than me. And I spent most of my childhood moving all around the country, so I never really had like a home base. I was, like I said, born in Tucson, and then I moved to Colorado, and then I moved to Massachusetts, and then from Massachusetts I moved to New Mexico. And within each of those places I had, I would say, anywhere from like 2 to 6 homes during the time that I lived there, both living half-time with mom and dad, but also just moving from home to home. I moved to New Mexico when I was 9 years old, so I say that's where I'm from because that's where I grew up the longest and kind of the place that feels more like a home to me. Essentially, there was a lot of abuse going on at home with my mom. She was processing a lot of her own trauma and was trying to take me away, so she would move me away from my father in each different move. So he got to this place where he said, you know, to my mom, you don't have to have contact with me, but I'm gonna be a dad either way. And he followed me around the country. And I am so grateful to this day that he did. He saved my life in many ways. So we got to New Mexico when I was 9. And there continued to be a lot of physical, mental, emotional, sexual abuse from my mom, and both of my brothers, like I said, were a lot older than me. So when they left the home for their own lives, it got a lot worse when it was just my mom and I. And when I was 13, I got to make the decision to live with my dad. And I think it was a very, very scary decision. I wasn't sure what would happen, and I had still a lot of love for my mom and still that need as a little girl to just be taken care of and have her. But it saved me deciding to live with my dad. I think I always tried, even as a child, to understand where she was coming from. And my mom lost her parents very young. She had both of her parents and her sister pass away in a car wreck. And from there had a house burned down, and from there had sexual abuse of her own. She lived alone for a very long time and had my brothers way younger than expected. And so I think it always came from a place of empathy and understanding, trying to, as a child, make sense of why was I being treated this way. And I think it was a way that I was able to cope, was to understand things. And I still am that way. Almost to a fault. It's something I'm always working on, like having to have an answer and decode things to understand them. But yeah, then when I was 18, I chose to move to California, and that was a big decision for me because I was a dancer for 18 years, and it was the one thing that saved my life over and over and over again when I didn't have a home. Any abuse that was happening, like, dance was my home for me, and that was the thing that brought me sanity and peace and love for myself. I started dance when I was 6 years old. And actually my first ever performance, I ran out from the stage to the audience because I was so terrified. And my parents were like, that's it, she's never gonna perform again. Little did they know that became my whole life. But then when we moved to New Mexico, there was a dance program attached to my school. And so that's when I started doing it like weekly. And then I went to a performing arts high school as well. So I just kind of dove right in. And I was always very shy, very unsure of myself. My voice was like 2 octaves higher. I was not grounded. I would kind of like whatever you liked. I would be whoever you wanted me to be, chameleoning as I call it, you know, because I just wanted to keep the peace and I wanted you to love me. So whatever that looked like, I would become it, even at the detriment to myself or what I liked or who I was or what I wanted to be doing or not. And yeah, dance saved me in that way as well, kind of gave me that autonomy a bit. But the decision to move to California was really big for me because I had been in that dance box my whole life, but I wanted more. I'd been writing songs since I was young. Like the first song, I still have it memorized, is about like waterfalls and ladybugs, and I was writing songs about there not being any more chocolate left in the fridge. I put that on an album as an adult. And I knew that I wanted more, but I hated judgment, and I didn't want that cliche of, oh my God, I can't say I'm gonna go to Los Angeles and become a singer. Like, that's so embarrassing. You know, I'm a dancer, I'm not gonna be that girl. And I have such a poignant memory of sitting on the gym floor with my senior class in high school, and we had these forms to fill out of like what we wanted to be and our goal of colleges where we wanted to go. And I just remember looking at that box and taking a breath and saying, okay, I don't want to go into dance. I want more. I want to go into music and explore that. And one of my qualms was not being sure which coast I wanted to be on, because I had kind of home ties, you know, on each. My father's family is from California. I had my grandma here. And I was looking up colleges, and I found a college, and quite literally when I opened the website, the title was "Why Choose One Coast?" And I was like, okay, this one. And so I moved, and that move was huge for me. It was scary. I didn't have any family in Los Angeles, but it was also very healing because I could get away from my mom. I could have that independence, and it was the first time I was able to kind of say, okay, like, all of this trauma that had built up in my childhood, I never felt that I was able to process it. So I moved to college thinking, okay, finally, like, I'm gonna have the chance to figure out who I am. I'm 18, like, just be free and be in this new place and process all this trauma. But 2 months into moving to LA and starting music school, I got diagnosed with terminal cancer. And so the first time I got diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and they initially gave me 5 years to live. And like I said, I was dancing like 6 hours a day. I started getting a soreness underneath my right arm, and I was not a person that went to the doctor a lot. I was kind of like, it'll be fine, you know. But it got really bad to the point where like I couldn't lift my arm much, and I decided to go to the doctor. I'm really glad that I did. My grandmother, when I was 17, passed of cancer. And so because of my family history, they decided to do a biopsy. And I got diagnosed that March. And at the same time, I was figuring out my queerness. I was dating a woman for the first time. I was figuring out bisexuality or being queer or what that looked like for me. While moving to a new city without family, and then being told that I have 5 years to live. So it was a lot. And during that time, I don't feel like I was a good person at all. I hurt a lot of people, and I lied a lot. I think that I was in this place where, while never intentional, again, I was always reaching for love. I would do whatever it took to be loved and to be cared for. And, you know, cancer was never an excuse for that. It was all of this trauma that I never got to heal, and then all of a sudden, well, I only have 5 more years, so I just need to get as much love. And if that means, you know, hurting other people, it was never the intention of hurting them, but I think my want for that was always more important than other people's emotions. And I had this absolutely backwards. And that's a guilt I've carried for a very long time. And I think led me, to a lot of realizations after the fact. But when I was in the sickness, I ended up doing chemo and radiation, and I had 16 different surgeries. And I ended up going into remission for 2 months. And that time was amazing. I feel like I was on top of the world. I felt like I beat it, and I was coming to the end of college, and I was like, this is it, made it through. And the whole time I was in full-time school. So I was dancing all day, I was singing all day, I was performing bald in front of, hundreds of college kids, being judged for a multitude of reasons. And it was rough, but it also, I think, helped me care a lot less about what people think of me, think of my image. When you look like death and you're performing in front of ruthless college kids, the only way out is through. So something I'm still working on, but that was a big lesson for me. So I was in top tier celebration mode, and 2 months later got re-diagnosed. The cancer had moved to my brain, the temporal lobe of my brain, from the lymph nodes in my, right here underneath my chin. And that was one of the darkest moments, because going from the highest of high to the lowest of low. And at that point, because it was in my brain, they gave me a year. And I decided not to do treatment, against the better judgment of everyone in my life, my father especially. And I think I just knew I can, sit in a hospital bed and wait to die, and I will, or I can continue to go to school every day and sing and dance and do what I love. And if that's the time I have left, I want to live it out feeling like myself, especially after going through treatment the first time. I didn't want to die that way. So I kind of adopted the mindset that if it's meant to kill me, it's meant to kill me. And if it's not meant to kill me, it's meant to teach me a lesson. So what is that? How do I find it? How do I apply it? And at the same time, I started looking into natural methods. My grandma had used some and had fought cancer with it for many years successfully. And I started looking into alkalinity, oxygenation of blood. And I'm always very careful where I talk about it, just because I don't have the cure for cancer. I am not able to help anyone else with their sickness. But for me, I found what worked. And I was able to heal myself. It was an incredible time. I graduated college. I started working with a record company. I went on tour, started doing music full time, living the dream. I was celebrating 1 year cancer free, and COVID hit, and I decided to go and take a celebration road trip to go see my best friend. She lived in Wyoming. And it was the perfect time. I had gotten let go from my job because COVID, the studio I was at, got sold and went under. And I was driving down a highway, 80 miles an hour on the freeway, on cruise control. And I think that I passed out in the driver's seat. And there's a lot of discrepancy about what happened in the crash. What we think the most logical reason is that my body doesn't process oxygen like a healthy person does because of my lymphoma. So sometimes I wear oxygen. But usually I will feel, if I'm having a bad lung day, I'll be able to put my oxygen on. I would have, pulled over and stopped. But I don't remember anything from it. And they think that I passed out due to the elevation climbing really high in that corner of Wyoming. And I went across all of my lanes, the median, the opposite lanes of traffic, and I landed on the other side of the freeway. And a true miracle I feel in my life is that, one of many, but a highway patrolman happened to be 10 minutes behind me. And he came with 2 highway workers. They started looking around the car for an ejected body because they didn't see anybody in the car. And one of the highway patrolmen opened the door to see, can we find a phone? Is there a wallet in here to identify whose car this is? And they found me crunched upon myself underneath the steering wheel where the pedals were. And I wasn't breathing. Again, there's a lot of discrepancy around the time frame, but supposedly I was not breathing or having trouble breathing for about 10 minutes, which for me is another big miracle. I had internal decapitation, so the bottom occipital bone was shattered and into my brainstem. I had broken my ribs, taking my gear shift off just due to the impact. And when they found me, half of my face was drooped, as kind of like a stroke victim's is. And so initially they thought maybe I had a stroke. Later they realized it was from the pieces of bone in my brainstem. So when they removed those, my face resumed a little bit, but I did have to still go through therapy to regain those facial muscles. And my face still isn't quite even. People don't notice it as much, but if I point it out, you can kind of tell. But yeah, I was helicoptered first to Casper Hospital. Casper Hospital said, we can't do anything for her. We don't know. She will probably die. We're not sure. We're going to bring her to a hospital with better care. And I'm so grateful that they did. I'm so grateful that a surgeon's ego didn't get the better of him and he said, no, I got it, and killed me on the table. So they flew me then to a second helicopter to Denver Hospital, and there was a surgeon there from Germany, and he saved my life. And he put in a big plate and screws and custom bolts and a big bone graft. And I woke up not being able to walk, talk, or see. And it was wild. It was the most outer body experience I have ever had. And I think that, I think my first memory is him coming in and wheeling my x-rays onto a TV screen for me to see. And my first thought, he said, we reattached your skull to your spine. And my first thought was like, wow, I must be on a lot of drugs because that can't possibly happen. That's not a thing. I'm not processing this correctly. But I was. And I spent a couple years relearning how to walk and talk and do all my motor skills again and play music again, play piano, sing, get my voice back. And I'm still working on a lot of that stuff. I'm 5 years out now this June, and I'll be 6 years cancer-free. I think these things are the best things that have ever happened to me. And I don't say that without acknowledgement of the trauma and the pain and like the deep sorrow that comes with it. But I think in the end, it healed a lot of my anxiety, it healed a lot of my depression, it healed a lot of my relationships. And I think all of my worst fears came true, and I was still okay. And that was the biggest lesson for me. When I got in my wreck, a bunch of people left my life, and that was one of my biggest fears, like loss of community, people leaving me, that core mother wound. She left when I got sick as well, and I think that it helped me figure out where to put my energy. I used to try to fix every single relationship I had, and it made me more precious with the people who can love me in a life or death way. And I give them all of my energy. But the people who don't have that, I can still love them from afar, but it doesn't mean I have to fix or I have to interact or I have to try to have a relationship. My depression got really bad throughout, and I had an attempt after the second time I was healed. And I think that that's a big misconception, is that when you're healed, then you're better. Everything's fine, the trauma's over, you're great. That's when the work starts. And I think that I wish I had some sort of blueprint to give everybody. But the number one thing to hold on to, I always say, the other side of pain is beautiful, keep going. And that's something that helps me so much, because when you're in that darkness, it really genuinely feels like there is no end. There is no light. That is all that is and will ever be. When you think that that's it, you've lost your chance, this is all that will happen, keep going, take that one more step. Another thing that has helped me is the idea of, if you jump in the river will carry you. And I think sometimes we can wait for healing. We wait and we think, oh, when will it come? When will the bad stuff stop happening? Oh my gosh, when will things get better? Never. The answer is life is always hard. There will always be hard things and trauma happening, but you get stronger. And if you take that action and you make that choice to take that step, then the universe or the world or God or whatever you believe in will carry you. It will help you, it will show you the way, but you have to make that choice and step in. I think that's a big important piece, is remembering that you are 100% control. You are in 100% control of your life. And there are a lot of variables and factors, but you get to decide what to do with those. And above all else, self-forgiveness, grace, self-grace, and self-love, which is the hardest part, and I'm still working on it every single day. But I think if you can find gratitude, you can find love, whether that's for yourself or for your life or for people who have hurt you. If you turn your attention to gratitude, you will be able to start building that happiness.